Hey, how's it going?
Hello.
How are you?
I'm well, thank you.
Cool, let's get into it. So, here's the situation. I'm not doing so well. I keep resetting my streak around 6 days, and I'm bummed that I can't hit a whole week. I feel like I have so much to do with work all the time, and I never get a break, and the mental exhaustion keeps leading to a binge. I can't quit or ask for any time off because I'm either too scared to lose my job or it's my only source of income. So I don't really know what to do.
Okay, well, you can't change your situation, but you can change how you react to and deal with the situation. And generally, when people try to deal with the situation, they give themselves some kind of like positive thinking. Could be worse. I just need to, whatever it is. Um, but it's not about changing the situation, and focusing on that streak is focusing on the wrong thing. The 6 days is basically willpower, white knuckling it, and trying to make sure you don't do this behavior rather than looking at, okay, you identified that you're stressed at work, but what you need probably are new ways of managing that stress. And often we manage stress by minimizing it, dismissing it, positive thinking it away, trying to ignore it, or using logic. And rather than saying, yes, of course I'm stressed. I'm stressed for the following 75 reasons, and my boss is this and da, like, and express it, and then respond to yourself like, yeah, this is hard, and I've been through hard things. First, you express it. I'm super stressed for this reason. Stress is an umbrella. Also, stress usually means different things. It means anxiety. It means anger. It means everything in between. So when you say you're stressed, what are you really feeling? First of all, express that because there's a difference between being stressed about work deadlines and being stressed because your boss, nothing is ever good enough. And they remind you of your parents, and it's bringing up all kinds of insecurities and anger and frustration. So, like, really dig in on what that stress is and identify it, express it for yourself, and then reassure yourself, tell yourself, hey, you've been through tough things. You're going to get through this too. Right now, it's horrible and it's challenging, but you're going to get through it. You know? And that's more helpful than trying to push it aside and then going to food to cope. It's about different ways of coping with that situation, not changing the situation. Like, here's a good example. It's sort of morbid, but when someone dies, we don't grieve to bring that person back and change the situation. We grieve because it helps us come to terms with and deal with our loss. Grieving is for the living, not to change the situation about the dead. And that is true for all situations that are challenging. We've got to really recognize it, process it, honor what we feel instead of trying to not feel it or use a coping strategy like with food.
That's a really interesting analogy.
Well, as you know, my dog just died. And
It's
so
really
it's
sorry for the loss.
yeah, I mean, and I know you saw him many times behind me, right? My 12-year-old Great Dane, and we miss him so much. You know, it honors him, and we have to feel our feelings. My whole family is, we have to feel our feelings, not so he's going to come back magically. He's in a box right by me, actually. But so that we can, we can feel slowly but surely less of the loss and more of the presence of the memories.
I see what you're saying. And can you like how does that pertain to binge eating?
It pertains to binge eating because so often we try to change the situation, or we just, in your example, I can't change the situation. I can't leave my job. No, you can't leave your job, but you can change how you feel about the job. You can look at what that job is activating for you. You can wonder, is there something about this job and this boss that's familiar, right? That might be tapping into something even more than the obvious. You can get more into the stress instead of trying to just go, to food or try not to feel it. We have to feel how it pertains to all life. We have to go through a mourning process for what's happened and what hasn't happened. We have to go through our feelings to come out the other side. That's why that expression, what you feel, you will heal, is absolutely true. You cannot stuff it down. You can't positive think it away. You can't ignore it. You can't gratitude it away, and you cannot stuff it down. And when you focus on food and a 6 day streak, you're focusing on the wrong thing, focusing on your behavior, not what's leading to the behavior.
But these feelings are too overwhelming. Like every time, I hear like I gotta feel it, but whenever I feel it, I just get so triggered and I just want to binge, and I don't want to feel it.
Of course, you don't want to feel it. Nobody wants to feel anything painful. But the first step is, and nobody teaches us how to feel, right? We're just told to feel it. You can't sit through feelings either. So the first step is just to name what it is that feels unbearable, even naming what it is. So, like, stress is, again, people say they're stressed, but they mean all kinds of different things. Stress is just an umbrella word that's kind of meaningless because it applies to so many different things. It can apply to fear, it can apply to frustration, helplessness, anger, sadness. It generally is a word that means many different things. So first, what are you really saying when you say you're stressed? And secondly, the second thing to do is to gauge the intensity of something. When we don't want to feel something, then any little bit of it is going to feel like too much. So, for example, let's just take anger.
Mm,
On a scale of 1 to 10, 10 might be rage and fury. In the middle might be, anger or you're mad. Frustration might be like a 4 on the scale of 10. Annoyance might be, 3. Irritation, somewhere in there, depending on how you define it, to start to make a gauge. And this is what I have in my book, is I teach people how to gauge the intensity of the feelings so that you can regulate them. Because if you're like, no, I can't be angry, or I can't be vulnerable, or I can't be sad, I can't be anything, then any little bit of that feeling is going to feel like a 10. A 2 will feel like a 10. So start by changing your changing your definition of success. And this is what I tell my patients all the time. We're not gauging success by did you binge or did you not binge. Success is, did you know why? First of all, did you know why? And secondly, then it's okay, you knew why. How intense was it? And generally it's more than one feeling. How intense were those feelings? Just start by that. You know why, and it was at this level. And I don't care if it's like, F it, I'm eating anyway. That's going to change. The work to do is first identify what you're actually feeling, start to gauge the intensity of it, and in time, that helps you regulate your feelings so it's not always too much.
okay. So just starting to like understand it a little bit is the first step. But
Hmm.
for me, like I hear what you're saying, but it's just like it feels so hard because this is my day to day. I go to work for 12 hours a day, and then I come home and I make dinner and I have to take care of my kids. And then by the time I'm done with that, I'm so spent, I'm so tired that even visiting something like this is just like exhausting. Like I don't want to think about this. I just want to like clock out.
Yeah, but how do you feel after you clock out with food? So why don't you think about what else can you do for yourself? Because you may not want to think about it, but then you end up zoning out with food and torturing yourself later. So either way, you're feeling bad.
Okay.
So it's not always about like, well, let me do the work and think about it. It doesn't have to be so much work. It's it's honoring yourself. It's paying attention to yourself. It's making yourself important, not, ugh, now I've got to pay attention to my feelings. Like if that's how you're feeling, if it sounds like that actually that's how you're thinking, where did you learn that how you feel is just too much? It's too burdensome and you just want to go fuck it and eat whatever. Where did you learn that? No,
And
learn it
that's
from
just how
somewhere.
my family, that's just how my family operated. And like I never really, I don't know, I just kind of just shoved it down all the time. And there's so much going on. And so I'm just trying to get by. And then even visiting that has always seemed so like, takes so much effort.
Because somewhere along the line you learned that you were effort. Your inner world was effort. Instead of you're honoring yourself by paying attention to in a compassionate way, not a, "Ugh, now I've got to deal with my feelings. But okay, what's going on with me? It doesn't have to be so much work. And what's going on with me? Okay, I'm feeling overwhelmed. What would I say to anyone else who was overwhelmed? Would I be like, here, eat this? Or would I say, okay, what do I need right now? Do I need to just zone out in front of the show? Do I need to like just work 12 hours? Maybe I just need to take a shower or take a walk and just decompress. What else in your life is feeding, if you will, your soul? What is what is there for you? If food is the only thing, you're going to turn to food to zone out. So two things are going on. One, you don't know how to decompress, and two, you think you're a burden to yourself. That needs to change.
And
Mhm.
I've listened to some of your stuff before, and I heard you say once, and it kind of stuck with me that if I'm paraphrasing it, but if I don't have something else to comfort myself, then I'm basically screwed. But like food is my comfort. How do I even find something else to comfort myself with? Like I don't that's not
Word,
that's foreign
words,
to me.
words. If you need comfort, what's going on? What do you need comforting? Because it's one thing to be working, like maybe you hate your job that you're doing for 12 hours a day. What are you thinking about? Like, what do you actually need comfort for? What's going on with you that needs your attention? So what you might have said was that if food is your only fun, right? If food is
Mhm.
your only fun,
Yeah.
then you're going to rely on food because if not, you have no fun at all. But that's different from comforting or, maybe you're using food to relax your body, right? Maybe you're so intense after your day that you're using that not just to emotionally cope, but to relax your body, because a relaxed body then leads to a relaxed mind. But there are many other ways of responding to yourself, because I'm sure that if your kid came back from school and said, "Hey, I'm really stressed out," you would not, I hope you would not be like, "Oh, okay, eat this," right? You'd be
Right.
like, "Yeah, you validate it. Of course you feel this way. How could you not? You just said, of course I feel this way. I just had 12-hour grueling day. I just want to chill out. How can I do or my boss, whatever, or the person that works for me, whatever, like honor that. Of course I feel this way. How could I not? This was hard day. Like validate it and then say, and then be like, yeah, I'm gonna get through this. Like it's how we talk to ourselves that is the comforting, relaxing, reassuring, soothing way that we don't learn to do. We learn to stuff it, figuratively, and for some people, literally, to avoid our minds rather than show up for ourselves.
Got you. Okay. Because yeah, right now it feels like when I go to look into all of that, it feels like I'm turning over a rock and then there's just an infestation of bugs and worms and stuff. So, what's like something I can do, even if it's like 5 minutes tonight after work, after making dinner, after tucking the kids into bed, like 5 minutes that I can like start to turn that rock over and like sort through this, even if it's not anything drastic? Like, what's something small that I can at least start out with?
How is this familiar?
What do you mean by that?
Ask yourself, how is this familiar? Often work is work and it is difficult for any number of reasons, right? But work replicates family dynamics. So sometimes bosses resonate in our psyche like parents, coworkers like siblings. This is not conscious. No one is consciously like, oh, I'm experiencing my boss like my father or my mother and my no one is thinking that consciously, but unconsciously there could be things being activated. So, how is this feeling familiar? That I want to get away from. Why you can ask yourself that too. Now it could be just that there's surface level. Oh, I worked 12 hours, I'm thrashed, it's just that. But maybe there's something underneath. Maybe there's something about the way someone speaks to you or the way someone relates to you or how you don't feel good enough or how you just can never get ahead or like, is there anything about that that's familiar?
Hmm. Okay. I'll try to sit with that. And one time, I was talking to someone about this, and their advice to me was just stay busy. And I thought that would help too, just working 12 hours a day and doing my thing. Like I'm busy all the time, but obviously it didn't work.
Okay, so staying busy is actually a defense mechanism of being of hyper productivity because if you're always busy, this is why binge eating at night is such a problem. Because when we're busy, we're doing things, we're not thinking, we're not feeling. At night, after your day is done and your everything sort of quiets down, that's when thoughts can come into your mind and feelings that you don't want to have. So staying busy is just kicking this can down the road. Whatever is going on, whether it's work that is actually the trigger or some relationship you have with yourself that you don't want to get in touch with that comes from somewhere, um, staying busy just distracts you. And by the way, eating is a way of staying busy. Eating is a way of distracting. It's just another distraction. The only way out is through, and the only way through is identifying your why, which can be hidden, learning to express it for yourself, and responding to yourself in a different way.
I see. Okay. Well, then help me understand this because you're saying the only way is through. And I've seen people online talk about how Vyvanse has helped them. And they didn't seem like they figured out, they did any sort of introspection. They just started taking Vyvanse. Like, what would you say about that?
I would say sometimes it's similar to GLP-1s. People have the expectation or people have an expectation that something's going to help, so it is a self-fulfilling prophecy. But I've seen lots of people who are on various medications who that didn't work for them. Ultimately, a medication cannot teach you how to relate differently to yourself.
Hmm,
And if you don't know how to respond to yourself, if you don't know how to be with yourself in a way that is compassionate, loving, warm, kind, supportive, and just, that makes you feel happier about you and your life, no medication's going to do that for you.
this is all just so frustrating to me because like I just want this to end. And you talk about the relationship with myself and comforting myself, but that process just seems like it takes so long.
When did you try it?
I mean, I've tried it a little bit here and there, but like it's
How?
kind of
How have you
discouraged.
tried it? How have you tried it?
Like, I mean, I've tried to sit with myself and think about different patterns and why I
That's
have.
not comfort. That's not comfort.
And even, but like, even when I try comforting myself in different ways, it just doesn't feel the same. And it just
How are
seems
you
like it's
comforting?
gonna,
How are you comforting yourself?
even little thing like taking a self-care day or a nice warm shower or
That,
watching a movie, like it doesn't feel like the same.
that's because it's those are just distractions. Those aren't comforting. Like if we're talking about, and people don't just binge for comfort. They binge because they're lonely. They binge because they're dissatisfied. They binge because something's missing in their lives. They binge because they're angry. They binge because, for many, many different reasons. But self-soothing is not the same as taking a shower. That's taking a shower. Taking a shower can just like kind of relax your body. But self-soothing is relating to yourself in a completely different way. What you're just describing is like another distraction.
So how long until, like, if I do this properly and I just stop trying to distract myself and I really try to relate to myself, like how long until I can stop this?
Well, I can tell you that with the right guidance and yeah, the right guidance, you could do it pretty fast. I help people in my 12-week program. I have a 9-week program and a 12-week program. I help people in my programs who have often struggled for decades, decades. I'm talking 30, 40, even 50 years. And they similarly are like, I've tried everything. You're going to help me in 9 to 12 weeks? Yes, because with the right guidance and the right way of doing this, you do learn how to name what's going on, heal the past, change your relationship with yourself, learn how to be without distracting, and just change your relationship with yourself, which changes your relationship with food, period. There are no shortcuts. And I can tell you, I've had the winner of one of the seasons of The Biggest Loser came to me because they gained all the weight back. I've had people who've lost 200 pounds on gastric bypass surgery back in the day, lost all the weight, gained it back. And every one of them, and now I'm having people who've been on GLP-1s who finally went off of them because of the side effects. It's not everyone has side effects, but a lot of people have side effects. Boom, they gain it back. And every one of them says the same thing. I thought the answer was the quick fix and it was about food. It's not about food. You got to learn to do the work, which is sad that it is considered work, of learning a new way of being with yourself and to
Yeah,
yourself.
but 9 weeks just sounds so long. Like you got to understand that every single day of this is excruciating. And
I've
so,
been there, I understand. But it's not like 9 weeks it's not like boom. It's like you don't learn to swim. You don't go into the deep end and learn to swim. Boom. You have to go in the shallow and you've got to learn some. You've learned a way of relating to yourself. You need to unlearn it. I totally get that you want the quick fix, but that's why I want to take your attention off the behavior. I know it's excruciating and be more of a detective. Gotta look at first, instead of I did well for 6 days and then I blew it, how about, okay, I started to recognize there's a pattern, realize that I'm feeling this or I'm thinking about this. That's the win for now. You start with a different win other than the behavior. Binging is a solution to a problem. It is not the problem. And the more you pull the curtain back on the problem and find new ways of addressing it, things change.
okay, so
Otherwise, otherwise you'll spend 9 years struggling.
I hear what you're saying, but this is like the first thing that enters my mind. I see myself doing this for about 6 or 7 days, starting to understand, maybe gaining some momentum. And then on the seventh day or the eighth day, I just binge like crazy, and I feel like screw this. It's not doing anything. Like, how do I keep motivation or keep going if I just see a little bit of progress, and not the progress in the way that is commonly spoken about, but the progress in the way you're talking about. And then I just binge like crazy, and I'm
Yeah.
just like, screw this, and I'm distraught.
Well, that's the trap. Progress isn't this. Progress is this. So when someone, and people always have I don't even call it a relapse, it's a part of change. The process of change is never, I have never in now almost 25 years since we count when I was a trainee that I've done this. I've never seen anyone just stop. So stop thinking that that's how it's going to go. Instead, reset your mind and say, why did you binge like crazy? Like, be more of a detective. There's a focus, you're focusing on the binge. I want you to focus on the why. What was going on that caused you to do that? That's where your interest has to lie instead of, I did it, so what's the point? I might as well do it some more.
Okay, so I'm curious. Like, I really do understand what you're saying. And you've obviously spoken to so many people about this. What are people's like common reactions to when you essentially tell them that it can't just be done like that? The progress isn't linear. Like, do people usually get upset about that? Are they understanding? Are they ready to take it on? Like, what's the common reaction to that?
Well, I think everybody is, first of all, there's no common reaction because everyone's an individual and has different reactions. And some people have tried, they have tried everything. I mean, everything. And so they're so desperate that they're willing to try this because they've struggled forever. But everyone gets frustrated. Hey, I was doing so well, and then boom. But when you really reset your mind and you look at it differently, like I like to be like, look, we're detectives, detectives of the mind, right? Instead of counting how many days that you didn't do a behavior, it's resetting, looking through that magnifying glass and being like, okay, let me be really curious, not critical. And when people get more curious about it, okay, what was going on with me that caused me to do that? They become much less frustrated with the behavior. If you really reset your mind to think this behavior, as horrifying, as vexing, as frustrating, as awful, as out of control, as horrendous as it is a way of coping. So, what am I coping with that might be out of my awareness? Often, when people get curious, it gets easier. When you're focused on, oh, I can't believe I did it again, you feel bad about this, what you did, and then you feel bad about yourself. But when it's like, okay, let me be a detective. What was happening? Let me see if I can break that down. What was going on? What was it? Then you're solving a mystery instead of counting days. And when you take the attitude of, I'm going to be interested in myself, not like, "Ugh, I've got to think about myself," it gets easier. So, of course, it's frustrating when the thing that you don't want to do is what you do. But when you reset it as, okay, there's some purpose to that. Let me understand that. It gets a
Yeah.
lot easier.
Okay. All right. Well, I think I'm ready to like do this, but one thing that I'm thinking about is this whole like detective thing. It's pretty foreign to me. It's not how my brain works. So how can I remind myself every day to think like a detective and really like be curious and not critical? Because it's against my nature. Like, do I set reminders in my phone? Like, how can I constantly remind myself and like help myself reprogram my perspective every day? Because I'll forget easily. It's like I've been thinking this way for so long, and I'm not just gonna start thinking differently overnight. So what can I do?
You learned this way. No one is born having an antagonistic relationship to themselves and their needs. And, anyone who's had kids can see that kids do not have an antagonistic relationship to themselves and their needs. Kids are all about meeting their needs. We learn to have an antagonistic relationship to ourselves, our feelings, our needs, our thoughts, our wants, etc. So remember, you learned this and you're going to unlearn it. What I tell people is like, I have a visual, like you come in like here, and this is the new way of being. Now, do I wish that you could just go whoop? Yes, I do. Wouldn't that be amazing? In fact, here's my Harry Potter magic wand. I wish it worked. Boom. Unfortunately, it does not. Although someone said that it works just slowly. So remember that you learned it. So you're going to unlearn, deconstruct, and construct. And then it's going to be old, new, old, new, old, new. And eventually the new takes over and the old goes away. So how do you learn anything? You know?
How can I remind myself every day though? Because like like it's when I wake up in the morning, my first instinct isn't going to be this new mindset. Like how can I remember this every day?
How do you remember anything? You want to.
Mm,
You want to. Instead of this is this thing I need to learn, it's okay. You know,
mm.
people have different things that they do. If you want to, you will, whether it's setting a reminder on your phone. I mean, people do different things that work for them. Setting a reminder on their phone. I've had people who are like, I set a reminder on my phone and I look at your Instagram every day because every day you post like a new thing and it makes me think.
Okay,
Okay.
so you're basically saying if I care enough, then I'll remember to do this.
Yeah. And if it's like you have to force yourself into it, well, what's that part of you that has to, why is it so hard? That in itself is information. Why is it so hard for you to do something for you? Where does that come from?
Sometimes I feel like that comes from just like unfamiliarity and it's almost uncomfortable to like try to get better.
Yes, the familiar feels real. And the familiar, even if it's a negative familiar, and uh, yeah, that's true. Of all things, the familiar feels real and the familiar feels right. The familiar bad feels more comfortable than the unfamiliar good.
Hmm. All right. Well, I'll give this a try and I'll let you know. Um, but all right, so now I'm gonna switch to another situation. So this past month I was talking to this girl um on text and phone very little. I asked her out and she told me she may be going overseas for a couple months and um she needs to see first. And fast forward a couple weeks, I texted her again. She told me she's leaving and it seemed like she wasn't interested. Um, but like I had a feeling she was into me until this happened, and she obviously isn't into me, and it hurt. Like I was doing so good, and didn't binge for 3 weeks, and now this past week I already did twice, and I just hate how I let that shit control me like that. And I was really focused on working on myself for a few days before I met her, and then once she came into my focus, it switched to becoming better for her. And now she left, and my focus is completely gone. And I genuinely can't seem to get another grip of myself again. Like, it's like I'm convinced that I need a girl to make up for what just happened. And this is literally the longest that I've went without binging. And I thought I was finally done and I was going to start my next chapter in life. And now I get hit by this.
What do you like about this girl?
Well, she's really cute, obviously. And whenever I think about her, I just think about like so many memories and amazing times in the future I can have with her. And I just, whenever I think about her, like I just feel this feeling that like I crush on her really. It's hard to like explain, but I like her.
So did you spend a lot of time with her, or was it more about the time you could spend if she went out with you and then you could have this life in the future?
I haven't really spent much time with her in person, mostly just texting. And I mean, every time I text her, I get so excited and I'm always anticipating her text back. And whenever I look at her Instagram, I just like I'm like low key just like obsessed about my like a future with her, even though I haven't even hung out with her that much.
So seems like she's kind of hard to connect with, kind of puts you off, and a lot of your ideas about her have to do with a fantasy about the future. But when you describe connecting with her, you're really not connecting with her. You're connecting with her on text, or she's a little bit avoiding you or telling you how she's going to be leaving. And then she's giving you the vibes of she's not interested. So, is there something about that feeling of trying to connect with someone who you can't connect with that's familiar?
Hmm. Well, yeah, this is like a pattern I've seen with myself. Is like I've been into a girl. I haven't even hung out with her that much. I don't see her like liking me as much as I like her, but I'm just obsessed with like what could be, like this idea about it.
So, I would say that there's something about wanting someone who isn't as interested in you and trying to get them to come around to like you, that uh, there's an something attachment wise going on. You're not going after a girl that's available. You're going after a girl that doesn't really give you the time of day and is going to leave the country, and that the relationship you have with her is really your idea of her, not her. So why is this important and how does it go to food? Well, our first relationship uh, with food goes with being fed. So when we're infants, when we're babies, we're held, someone's holding us, someone's feeding us. So in our psyche, food and relationship are connected.
Hmm.
So that's why we talk about comfort food. No, we're actually talking about a wish to be comforted by somebody else. So you're, let's say, hungry for love in some way. You're starving for some connection, and I'm using those words purposefully, but you're also choosing someone that you can't have who's
Yeah,
showing you she's not interested, right?
it doesn't
And
even make sense to me.
well, it makes sense if you look at it from you're repeating something familiar. So if we have an early relationship where we can't quite get someone's attention, we try to let me use a different example. Like if we have a judgmental father and we hate being judged by the judgmental father. It's awful. Nothing is ever good enough. Nothing we do is ever good enough. The father is just judging us. Never good enough. What happens? Do we grow up and find someone who's kind and considerate and loving? No. We usually are attracted to judgmental partners in the hopes, unless we deal with our judgmental father, in the hopes that that person is going to, well, we could turn that person around, that the judgmental partner would become the kind, accepting, loving partner. Only what happens is it's just rinse and repeat. We keep getting the same relationship over and over and over again. We're trying to heal an old relationship through a new familiar one. So if you are really into this girl who isn't that, who's showing you she's not that interested in you, but you have all these ideas about how it's going to be, but you actually don't have a relationship with her. How is that seeking of someone who is not someone you could have fully? How is that familiar? Maybe it's a parent, maybe it's an early girlfriend, maybe it's, it's familiar in some way. There's a relationship that's unhealed that you're repeating.
Okay. I see what you're saying.
And if you look at it that way, then, you know, having these ideas about your life, that was fulfilling to you. And then when it became clear that she was not interested, you're empty again. So I'd say the problem is not binging. The problem is this relationship style, this attachment style of I want the person I can't have. That's what to address. That it's leaving you empty, lonely, unfulfilled, and then maybe rejected. And sometimes when we feel rejected, we feel rejectable and use food for comfort and distraction or to fill the void or whatever.
Okay. Yeah, because I mean that kind of makes sense to me. It's very, it almost feels like I was on two different points of extremes because when I was talking to her and there was a little bit of hope that she was into me and it was this like excitement every day of like talking to her and I was pretty much all consumed by it. Um, and I wasn't really binging on. I was like excited to get in really good shape for her and just thinking about the amazing things that could happen. And then now that that's not even on the table, it's like I'm just stuffing my face and I feel hopeless.
Yeah. So what got stirred up by all of this kind of like hope about this girl? Who is she to you? Because most of this relationship was in your head. And that's what was fulfilling. That's what filled you up. That's what made you feel good. But it wasn't real. It was the hope of it being real that was more real than she was. So,
Okay. Because like I said before, this has happened. This isn't the first girl it's happened with. Every single girl that I've been into, it's been this dynamic where I'm obsessed with her. She's not as into me, and I get this idea of it, and it never kind of like um, follows through. If that, you know,
yeah. So what was the original, what, how far back does that feeling go? Like, when did you first feel that hungry for love is what it is. Hungry for love. I want that person. And then you fixate on that person. That's the one who's going to give it to you. But she's always a little bit someone you can't have.
and
When's the first time?
it's almost like insanity. You know, like the quote by Einstein about insanity doing the same thing over and over again and expecting a different result. That's how it feels.
Yeah, but I would say, actually, I will differ with that quote and say it's toxic hope. It's hope. It's what Freud called repetition compulsion. We're compelled, there's a compulsion to repeat unhealed relationships.
Hmm.
And we repeat familiar relationships hoping for a different result. So the question is, what was the original relationship?
I feel like it always had to do with girls. Um, like I'm trying to think about if it was my parents because my parents were very loving to me. So I don't think it was that. But I even remember in elementary school, like trying to impress the girls on the playground. Like seriously, um, when we were playing flag football, like if I made a good catch, like looking to see if they were watching. And I always felt like I never felt like I got their attention. Um, but like my question is, okay, like if I realize that, what can I do to like prevent this from happening again?
What would it be like to actually meet someone in person and have a relationship with them in reality instead of in fantasy? And give up the idea that the person who isn't looking is going to look. There's something about that trying to get someone to see you, literally, figuratively, that they don't want to see you. What do you give up if you give up on that wish?
Hmm.
And by the way, parents can be love and look, I'm a parent. I parents, I'm not about blaming parents. I'm about explaining because you could have things like it's not about them being loving or not loving. Like for example, I talk about this in one of my books. This guy whose parents are great, super loving to him. But after about a year and a half of all relationships, whether it was with a girl, at a job, anywhere, after about a year and a half, he would just be like, I'm not feeling it anymore, and he would leave. So I thought, oh, what's going to happen after he's been with me for a year and a half? Right. Um, sure enough, he comes in one day, we're doing like really good work. Not that I see everyone for a year and a half, but sometimes I do see people for a long time. And he said, I'm just not feeling it anymore. I think I'm going to move on. And I brought it to him, his attention. So we started looking at like what happened when he was a year and a half old, 17 months actually. His sister was born and she had complications, and his mom was away from him. So he was the firstborn, he was the prince of the family, right? First grandchild, first son. Sister was born, had complications. All of a sudden, their attention is on this baby and a baby with extra needs. So he felt dropped. So right, this is so interesting in our psyche. Even though his parents were perfectly loving, that was so wounding to him that he reversed it in his life later. He became the one who left after about a year and a half, right? And so working through what it must have been like to feel like you were suddenly dropped because a kid was born helped him. And he's now been married like 10 years and has a 8-year-old son or something. So, right, you can change. So
How did he change?
well, we had to actually listen to his year and a half old self of what it was like, kind of reconstruct like what it felt like to be the the firstborn, the first everything, and then suddenly everyone's gone. Everyone's paying attention to her, and how dropped he felt and right how and why could he do it? Because he knew he kept doing it to other people. Like, what do you imagine that I would feel if you just decide to leave? Oh, I think you're going to feel really rejected and really dropped and really this. And I'm like, that's what you felt, right? So recognizing, yeah, that's what happened and reconstructing it as he wasn't actually dropped, he wasn't rejected. It felt that way because he was a baby, really. And just kind of healing that old wound. This is unusual. It's usually not that, doesn't go back that far, but I use it as an example to show how early things that happen, such as a sibling being born or parents getting divorced, and suddenly you can't see someone as much as you could before. And like there's the reality of what's happening, and then there's how kids interpret that reality. So it's not about good parents, bad parents, loving parents, not loving parents. It's about what happens and how we interpret it. So even having a sibling born could feel like you can't get your mom's attention because she's busy with so and so, and that could be the beginning of, hey, look at me.
I got you. Okay. And this, like, I feel like that's a good example for me to hear because he's doing something very similar. He was every time he had a partner or even therapist, after a year and a half, he would leave. And I'm seeing the same pattern for me just manifest in a different way with this fantasy of a girl. But how long did it take for him from realizing that and empathizing and really understanding and becoming familiar with his 1.5 year old self? How long did it take from that starting point to be able to have a 10 plus year married relationship? Like, what did that process look like? Because, going back to what I was saying before, is I just don't want this to happen again. And I understand that it's not going to be overnight where I can just be like, all right, not going to happen again.
Right. Well, insight is the first step. That's why I really don't like Oprah's aha moment because she made it seem like you just go, I get it. Boom, 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 boom. So what has to happen is, and I don't remember the exact timeline, but I can tell you that after that, he chose a different kind of person to be with, you know.
Mm,
And then while he was dating her, things would come up and would just work through it, you know. And so it was like that old new, old new, old new, old new. But now he knew where it came from. So that impulse to be like, I don't know about this, he chose a different kind of person. He chose someone he could actually be with instead of someone that he was there and it was fine, but it wasn't, well, it wasn't anything like he had the power, right? Because he wasn't as into them as they were to him. I
I
mean, it
got you.
manifested in many different ways.
I see. Okay, I'm
Yeah.
gonna step out of that example for a second. So
Hmm.
I'm back to Max again.
Hmm.
Um, One thing that I'm just thinking about right now is how the solution is gradual and it takes time, and how that juxtaposes to what I see every single day, and I'm sure you see every single day. I'm on Reddit a lot because the binge eating people who struggle with binge eating are very active on Reddit. Obviously, I'm active on our in our community, not as much lately as I'd like to be, but before I was really, really active. And I'm on TikTok, and what I constantly see is almost like cries for help. I'm struggling. I want this to end so badly. It's never like, oh, I kind of want it to end. It's like it's so painful. But the thing I see is with that, people are wanting a just naturally wanting a quick fix. Like it's so painful. So if there's like a pill they could take right away. And, when I tell people my experience and I'm like, it's not very sexy, but it wasn't a quick fix. It's almost like, it's like, screw that kind of thing. So I don't really have like a question here. It's more so me just reflecting on on my own experience and what you're saying, because during these different things, I'm like pushing back and I'm like, oh, it takes so long. Screw that. And when in reality, it's like, well, one, it doesn't have to take that long. And two, the time passes anyway. It's like, is the time going to pass where I'm going to stay in the same patterns and not try something else and look and try to I love the simple visualization you gave with the old new, old new, old new, because that's what it is. It's like constant training and like catching yourself in the moment and glimpsing into it, and it's like a compounding effect here. Um, versus this phenomena. I don't wouldn't even call it a phenomenon, but like it's overwhelming how many people online are struggling and just want it to end ASAP.
Of course, when you're in pain, you want it to end ASAP. Of
Absolutely.
course. And just recognizing, of course, no one's like, let me suffer. If you're depressed, you want to feel not depressed anymore, right? No one's like, well, let me stay depressed and I gradually will get, of course you want a quick fix. The problem is, to your point, it's not sexy, but there are no quick fixes. But I tell people, think. 6 months ahead. If you don't do anything but do what you're doing, you're going to be exactly where you are in 6 months, you know? But if
Do you,
you, or 6 months of doing something differently. It's like you want to you want to play the piano. It's not quite the same as getting out of pain, but say you want to play the piano. You don't instantly learn to play Tchaikovsky. You have to learn where, okay, my fingers go here. What are the, and it's hard. Or better example, going to the gym. Go to the
Mhm.
gym, right? The first time you go to the gym, it's like, what am I doing? And this is hard, and this is awkward, and this is painful, and it actually literally hurts. What am I? But no one is like, well, it hurts and it's hard and it's painful, so I'm not going to do it. People say, I'm going to the gym and it hurts and it's hard and it's painful, it's awkward, and I'm going to keep doing it because I have my eye on how it's going to be.
Mhm.
It's the same.
Right. And it pours into so many areas of life. And this makes me think about how when I was binging so many times, my knee jerk reaction after was to restrict or fast because I felt 2 points of pain. One from the guilt of binging. Why the F did I do that? Why do I keep doing this to myself? Ruminating in my head about what I had just done. And also the pain of where I'm at with my body. Oh, I feel fat now. Summer's coming up and I want to look good on the beach. I want to look good for this girl, and things will all be so much better when I look better. Um, and so the what does my logical brain think and my emotional emotions point to is to like, all right, let's just not eat and do something drastic. So it just the dynamic of being in pain and doing something drastic and then like realizing that that doesn't work for this area of life is just something for all of us that struggle with binging to chew on. No pun intended there.
Yeah, it's just normalizing that yes, you don't want to feel this way and it's counterintuitive to think, well, I I, I'm not going to restrict. But when you restrict, you just perpetuate the problem, as you know, because the problem, food is not the problem. Food is the solution to the problem.
Right.
And the only way to have to change it is to really identify what the problem is and create a new solution towards that.
And I will say from myself um, that the feeling of stacking up wins over time and looking back and being like, oh my goodness, like I've actually come so far is so good. Like, because I grew up wanting instant validation and relief. I got I grew up on social media. I got a phone when I was in fourth grade. And so I grew up with the whole like algorithm in my face and reinforcing that with quick dopamine, all of that. And I want it now, 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 now. And so what I've had to learn personally is the now, now, now. It's only it can only get you so far. It only can get me so far. And so even with other areas of my life, as we spoke about before, something happened where I built something to a certain point and I was happy about it. It got taken away from me. And so naturally after that, I was, of course, very upset and I just wanted it back so quickly. But it's like the way that it was built wasn't so quickly.
Yeah. Yeah. Everything in life takes time to do. It's like people, I'm going a little bit astray, but I write books, my husband writes novels. Now it's like you can write a book on ChatGPT in, 5 minutes. But you know what? You could do it fast, but if you don't put the heart in it and you don't put the soul in it, you don't put the effort in it, and it's not like difficult, then the reward is not so great. When you really put the effort in, it is a much better feeling of you earned something. So it's not just, now I'm not talking about books anymore. It's not just I'm not binging anymore. It's I've been through a process and I did the work and I'm really proud of myself for doing this work and this is the outcome. And now I can live it. Now I can wake up and think about my day, not my diet, because of all the work I did. Like if you could take a pill and build a bunch of muscles and be like, steroid boy or something, that's not as fulfilling as working hard, going to the gym over time and being really proud of yourself for your consistency, your tenacity, your hard work, and then you look at in the mirror and go like, "Yes, I built this body." Right? It's the same with anything and it's the same with this. It that's why the only way out is through. There's no magic pill. There's no magic substance that will change the way you relate to yourself.
Mm, yeah, it's an interesting, like, this is your life's work, and the fact that the only way is through is basically, I'm trying to put this into the right words, but everything nowadays is so quick and instant, like algorithms and instant dopamine from phones are only getting stronger. The food is only getting more addictive. So you're coming at it from like the opposite side, and then trying to teach like that the way out of this isn't the way that's being shoved in our faces.
Right. And we have minds, not just brains. It's not just dopamine. Any pleasurable thing raises our dopamine, right? So it's not just you're chasing dopamine, because that makes you into a brain and not a whole person with a mind and thoughts and ideas and ways of relating. And it's very reductionistic, this kind of tendency I'm seeing about the dopamine chasing and all of that. Like, you know,
Got you.
it's a
Okay.
way of being in the world that's different and much easier to be liberated from all of that.
Fair. Let's see how we're doing on time. Um, what's your timeline looking like for time?
I maybe have like 10, 15 more minutes. Yeah.
Sounds
Or
good.
yeah.
Okay. Something that I think would be good to talk about is post binge guilt. Um, for me, and like we're talking about, this goes into all areas of life, not just binging. But when let's say I slept in a little bit too much, and it's like, oh, I did that again, or I I just did something that I'm not happy about. What's the best way to deal with that, like, overwhelming of like, oh my goodness, like frustration with myself, and move on from it?
Well, I would first challenge, like, what's the crime? Again, if it's I ate the whole pizza,
Mm-hmm.
how could I have done that? And often people talk to themselves in second person voice, which we've talked about before. How could you have done that? You're such an idiot. You're going to gain weight. You're this, you're that. That's the critical voice. And by the way, if a friend came to you and said, I ate a whole pizza, would you be like, you are disgusting. You this, or no, you wouldn't. I don't think so. But we talk to ourselves in a different way. So instead of looking at the behavior as like a food crime, or anything that you think you don't should on yourself and anything you think you did that you shouldn't have done, look at it like, okay, why did I eat that pizza? What was going on with me? That, like, again, be a detective of your mind instead of a critic who's just going to make you feel bad, and then you feel bad because you just beat yourself up because you ate the thing or you slept in or you did whatever, and now you're beating yourself up and now you end up eating to get away from your own critical voice. So like, what's the crime here? Challenge that. What's the crime? What would you say to a friend? And then recognize, well, why did you do it? Maybe you're tired and you needed some more sleep. Maybe your body is letting you know, hey, you need to catch up on sleep. maybe you were trying to fill a void, if you using my pizza example, were you trying to fill a void? Were you trying to escape yourself? Did you restrict and then you were so hungry you couldn't stop? Like, what was going on? Were you trying to sedate yourself? Like, why did you do it rather than what did you do?
Mm,
That's the detective thing. Instead of, oh, you did something, you did that. Look at, well, you did it for a reason. What's that reason? You know?
I got that
So
makes
that
sense.
the next time you feel that, hmm, you're gonna have maybe a different way of being with yourself in that moment.
And there's this person on TikTok that I've seen that says, if you binge ate last night, no, you didn't. Basically, the point is to try to move on with your day and retrain your mind as if you didn't do it. What do you think about that?
Do you see what I think of that? I think that's ridiculous, and that person is clearly doesn't understand binge eating and doesn't have a basis in psychology from what I'm hearing. You can't trick your mind. You can't ignore it and wipe the slate clean because you have to learn why you did it so that you don't do it again. Like if you did it for a reason. That example what you just gave is like plucking a weed and thinking it's not going to grow back. The weed is gone. It's gone. Yeah, it's gone for a minute and it's going to grow back because you didn't get to the root. You have to get to the root. There's
Yeah.
no tricking your mind and being like, okay, that didn't happen. It did happen. You know it happened. Why did it happen? Not that it happened. Why did it happen?
Have you ever had a patient or someone that you knew that was very in tune and understanding of their why, and they really spent a lot of time looking at their patterns, and peering into themselves, and had a lot of answers to a lot of your questions of why, but they still found themselves repeating the same behaviors?
Yeah, because why is, first of all, not really. People think they know their why, but there are aspects of ourselves that are hidden from us, you know. But even if they do, even if they know their why, that's only the start. Then it's, well, how do you respond to that why differently? And, you know, not, you could, insight is not enough. It's important. You cannot fight an invisible army. You just get beaten up, right? That's binge eating. You just get there's an army of ideas and feelings and thoughts and stuff that's going on that just gets you. Once you make that army visible, you can fight back, but you still have to know how to fight.
Okay.
So you still have to know, okay, it's like, oh, I binge every time I feel sad. Of course, you're still going to binge when you feel sad because knowing that is not enough. It has to be, okay, the next time I feel sad, I'm going to do this differently. I'm going to express that sadness in a particular way. I'm going to respond to myself with, in a certain way. Like you still have to deal differently with the thing that you recognize.
I see. Okay. I think that's good. I think we
Okay.
covered a lot.
Yes, we did. Okay, well, I will send you the link when I get it, and I hope that your people find it helpful. I'm sure they'll find it vexing and frustrating, but what I was going to say is picture yourself in 6 months. If you keep doing what you're doing and if you keep looking at food as the problem, in 6 months, I guarantee you're going to be exactly where you are now.
Hmm.
But if you try something different, 6 months may seem like a really long time. But if you try something different and you go to the mind gym, just like the real gym, a mind gym, um, and you work out your mind in a different way, things are going to be a lot different in 6 months. And that 6 months from you that's been to the mind gym is going to be really happy with the you that is now starting that journey. But if you don't, and you keep going and you keep fighting food like it's the problem, that 6 months from now self is going to be the same as the self you are now.
I feel like that was the crux of our conversation. If nothing changes, then nothing changes. And the big change here is changing your perspective on instant gratification versus the process of all of this.
And it is easier to think about food than it is to think about what's eating at you. It is easier to focus on food than it is to think about why you might be into girls that want nothing to do with you and what that might mean about you, right? That's hard. Focusing on food, and I did the 6 days and all this, that's easier. It's painful, but it's still easier than focusing on what's eating at you. So, but the right people will do the hard work.
And that was another thing too, is like I went during that session, it's like, how am I going to remind myself? How am I going to remind myself? Your answer was like, essentially, if you care enough, you will, you know?
Yeah,
And that's so true for me. It's like, all right, like if I want to, then I will.
yeah, exactly. And you'll figure out what that is for yourself.
Right. And that's not even like saying like, oh, you just need willpower. That's like saying if I want to get better, then even a little bit a day, I'll try to go to the mind gym.
Yeah.
Try to remind myself to take at least a little bit of a step a day.
Yeah, because people don't say, well, I really want to go to the gym and get fit. So how am I going to remind myself to go to the gym and get fit?
Right.
You want to do it, you go to the freaking gym.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, have a great rest of the day.
You as well. Thank you so much for doing this as always. It's always a help to all of us, and people only have good things to say about it. So thank you so much for taking the time out of your day.
You're so, so welcome. And as you know, if you could tell them about my book, The Binge Cure, I really love getting that book in people's hands because it is so, it helps them so much.
Mhm.
So that will also help, like some of the answer some of the questions that you ask. And when
Yeah.
it, here, wait a minute, let me just shut off the recording. Um, when is your